I bought my 2021 Grom about a month ago to take me to places like this, or this, or this. Sometimes I ride there like this. Sometimes, if I'm going a fair distance, I let my van do the hard work. You see, the Honda Grom is great fun, but it's also small in every way, which is great in a forest or on a cliff edge like this, but the bike does have its limitations. Now, I knew what I was getting into when I bought the bike because while it is my first Grom, I did own the very similar Monkey 125 a couple of years ago. I sold this bike, however, after only a couple of months. So what do I think of the Grom after the first 500 kilometers? Riding on main roads where traffic is above, say, 40 miles an hour, 70 kilometers an hour, is really out of the question for me. I'll do it on a full-sized bike, no problem, of course, but I feel too insignificant to other road users when I'm on the Grom. There's also the question of power, of course, or lack thereof. While 10 horsepower is fine in town or on forest tracks, which is what I bought the bike for, and up to about 40 miles an hour, you're fine. Downhill with a favourable wind and you'll see 60 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, but don't expect to be able to maintain that kind of speed for long. If you accept the bike's limitations, that it's meant as a fun bike for buzzing around town rather than riding between towns, or taking up a mountain or along a forest trail, then there's no problem at all. So how does it compare to the Monkey I had? Well, straight off the bat I can say that I do prefer the Grom because it's slightly more practical. You can take a pillion for a start, and Honda have given the 2021 Grom a nice flat seat, which is great for my 6'1", 187 centimeter frame, because it means I can slide back on it as far as I want to give myself a bit more room. People imagine that these little bikes must be impossibly uncomfortable, especially for us taller folks, but they're not. I rode the Triumph Speed Triple 1200 a couple of weeks ago, for example, and felt far more scrunched up on that than I do on the Grom. The handlebars, which I won't be changing, I don't think, unlike many owners, are nicely swept back for me, resulting in a natural and surprisingly comfortable riding position. The suspension is very soft though, far too soft for my 90 kilos, and when my 50 kilo wife is behind me, the rear shock is constantly hitting its bump stop. Honda say the bike can carry up to 150 kilos, so I suppose we are right at the limit. I've been advised that Racing Brothers make the best aftermarket rear shock for the Grom, so I'll probably be ordering one of those soon. The front forks similarly dive massively under heavy braking and often reach their bump stop. I don't know what rider morphology Honda had in mind when they designed the suspension, but it's almost as if they were expecting the bike to be ridden by a child. Probably if you weigh less than, say, 70-75 kilos, you'll be fine, but larger riders like me will need to look at upgrading the rear shock at the very least, especially if you intend taking the bike off-road. As you probably noticed, I also asked the Honda dealer to fit these Maxxis M6024 knobbly tyres at delivery. So all my comments about the riding experience, grip, handling, etc. need to be taken with a pinch of salt, as I haven't actually tried the Grom on its stock tyres. I have heard that they are not that good and that many street users swap them out for some Michelins, but personally I don't have any experience. Other minor mods I've done include painting the 3 lower silver washers in gold to match the forks and the calipers, and the upper set in black to make them a bit less visible, as I thought the original silver ones looked a bit like fake bullet holes. I fitted some bar end mirrors as the factory ones look a bit Mickey Mouse, and put some Grip Puppy foam rubber sleeves on the handlebar grips to fatten them up a bit, as well as reduce vibration. I put these on all my bikes as I've got fairly large hands and don't like tingly fingers. I also put a screen protector on the clock, mainly as I do a fair bit of off-roading on dusty tracks, and I'll put a link to all these add-ons in the description. So what's the Grom like to ride? Well, once you've got used to the bike's diminutive size, it's actually surprisingly normal. The engine might only put out 10 horsepower, but there's a relatively healthy 10.5 Newton meters or 7.7 foot-pounds of torque at a relatively accessible 5,500 revs, and combined with the new 5-speed gearbox, This makes for an almost relaxing ride, at least on slower roads, compared to, say, the Monkey. Once you reach speeds of around 70 kilometers an hour or 45 miles an hour, there isn't much left, to be honest. But as I've said in the past, I think fun on a motorbike is to be had not so much in riding fast, but in riding flat out. And in that respect, the Grom, just like my 9 horsepower Vision scooter, delivers, because you do find yourself on full throttle a lot. So what are the brakes like? Well, they do the job, but they feel a bit wooden, and they certainly haven't got the bite of a pair of Brembo Stylemas. The brake lever, which I've also changed for an adjustable model, requires quite a firm squeeze, but the brakes do slow you down eventually, if you're not in a hurry. The pads could probably benefit from an upgrade. I remember I fitted some EBC pads to the Monkey, and that did improve things slightly. I've seen photos online of owners upgrading to big Brembos, but surely on such tiny wheels you would instantly lock up the tyres or find yourself flying over the handlebars. Again, I bought the Grom as a cheap, fun, go-anywhere bike that I could easily carry around in the back of my van. It's not a track day weapon, although I know many owners do race their Groms, and Honda have even announced a race-prepped version of the new model for later in the year. So what about fuel consumption? Well, the bike's only got a 6-litre tank, but the onboard computer is showing an average of 1.6 litres per 100 kilometres. Since I got the bike, I haven't reset it, which equates to around 150 miles per gallon US and 175 mpg UK. So this gives me a theoretical range of 375 kilometres, or about 235 miles, which is more than enough for the kind of riding I do. The lights are LED, but I never ride at night, to be honest, so I can't comment on how good they are, but they seem fine in our underground garage. I've ordered some parts to swap the indicator bulbs for some switchback LEDs, as I'd like to get rid of the permanent orange glow that the indicators emit as a kind of daytime running light. It's a nice idea, but it sort of looks as though you're indicating to turn all the time, and I'm concerned that one day a car driver might pull out of a junction in front of me. I'm surprised Honda were able to get this through the type approval process, to be honest, especially in Europe, where we don't really have orange or red marker lights, but it is what it is. The seat itself is a bit on the narrow side, but it's comfortable enough. Not a patch on the Monkey's incredible pillow seat, of course, but show me a bike that is. I removed the pillion strap, which Honda had the good sense to bolt rather than stitch into place, meaning that it can be taken off and replaced if necessary with ease. My wife tends to put her arms around me rather than use the strap anyway, so it wasn't needed, and removing it allows me to slide my backside up and down the seat with greater alacrity. What about the exhaust notes? Well, it's a 125, so don't expect anything special. But here's what the stock bike sounds like on startup. Now, I'm fine with the stock sound, but I know a lot of owners do like to experiment with their exhausts. So I asked a friend and fellow YouTuber in the UK to send me over a clip of his Zoom Brute exhaust on his otherwise identical Grom so that you can compare. Here it is. So, should you buy a Honda Grom? Well, it all depends on what you're looking for. Personally, if I were looking for a 125 for commuting, then I'd look somewhere else. The Grom is just too small physically to give you, or rather me, the confidence in heavy traffic, and it's not powerful enough to be used safely on faster roads. There are much better, more practical full-size bikes out there from KTM, Yamaha and Honda themselves. If, on the other hand, you're after a small, fun bike, perhaps a second bike for weekends, riding down to the beach or up into the hills or forest, fields, then go for it. It's cheap, so you don't need to worry about getting it scratched or getting it dirty, although being so small, they are quite easy to steal, apparently, so watch how you park up in urban areas. Running costs are negligible, to be honest. I'm paying just over €100 per year, fully comprehensive, although I am quite old. Parts are very cheap. The off-road tyres, for example, were less than €100 for the pair, and fuel consumption is so low that it's almost free transportation. Anyway, I hope this has been of some interest to those of you looking for a small, affordable, fun bike. Leave any questions you may have in the comments section below, and as always, I will do my very best to answer them. As always, thanks for watching.